Kicking this off, yesterday we heard from Dr. Amy Cosby, who gave us an overview of this fantastic project, the Race Gippsland project. And I'd also like to acknowledge some of the project colleagues and contributors who are in the room. We have Dr. Jamie Manning, who's dialing in on by phone. We have Dr. Nicole McDonald. We have Amy McCosker. Professor Bobby Haraveld is at our Rockhampton campus and not in the call today. And I'd also, I think that was the main project team. And I'd also like to introduce Ashley Clark from the Office of Social Innovation, who's going to be working with us specifically on the social enterprise component. Just quickly, for those of you who don't know a lot about CQ University and why we might be involved in a project such as this, we are the largest regional university in Australia. We have 25 physical locations around Australia across all mainland states. The majority of those locations are based in regional Australia, and some of them I would go as far as to say are in remote Australia, such as our Emerald campus in central Queensland. We have a long history of working to raise aspiration in education, create employment opportunities, support local economies across regional Australia. And so for us, working to raise the aspiration of young people to be involved in the agriculture and agribusiness sectors in Gippsland is a natural fit for us. More recently, we've been doing a lot of work around the social enterprise sector, and I'll talk a little bit about that further in the presentation. Yesterday in the presentation, Amy talked to us about the objectives of this project, and I'll quickly cover them off. I know many of you were in the session yesterday, but in case you weren't, the broader Race Gippsland project has three main objectives. That is to raise awareness and increase the motivation in primary and secondary age students to pursue one of the vast range of careers across the agricultural supply chain. The project also has an objective of building students' knowledge of and increase their aspiration to undertake further education pathways, and to enhance students' life skills, including communication, resilience, problem solving, and developing their overall capacity by exposing them to employers and industry, and particularly exposing them to local employers. Amy used the lovely phrase yesterday, you can't be what you can't see. And as those of you who are involved in education or are parents yourself know, trying to bring up kids and tell them about the whole host of jobs and industries that are potentially available is an enormous challenge. And what we know is that people learn best when they can see something in front of them that they can understand or emulate and adapt to. Sorry, I keep flicking back and forth because I've got my notes here. So this presentation today is about one specific component of the Race Gippsland project, and that is how do we introduce enterprise skills into schools? How do we help both the schools and young people understand the nature of social enterprise as a particular type of business that is really about community participation and very much located in particular geographies. So I'm going to talk to you today about what social enterprise is, and there may well be some of you in the room who are social enterprise experts. I don't profess to be a social enterprise expert. I haven't run one, but I have worked for many, many years with people who do run social enterprises, and importantly, I've worked with young people in developing their capacity to think about working in the social enterprise sector, to think about addressing social issues through social enterprise as a business model. And we'll talk to you a little bit more about that through the presentation. We're also going to talk about why social enterprise is a great educational model and why we believe that young people can really enhance their capability and deepen their 21st century or their work skills through social enterprise. We'll talk to you a little bit about the Race Gippsland program structure and how we're going to be scheduling the work around social enterprise next year, and then talk about how you might become involved in it as a supporter or a participant in the program. And on the slide, you'll also see some of the other industry contributors, including the Victorian Government, who are funding the project through the Education and Training Department, and a number of other participants that Amy went through yesterday explaining their role in the project. So first of all, what is a social enterprise? At its heart, a social enterprise is a business that operates for a social purpose. So some quick examples of what that might be might include providing employment to people who would otherwise perhaps struggle to get access to employment, either because they have not had sufficient education to get access to employment. There's been a disruption to their education. They may have had a period of incarceration. They may experience health or mental conditions that have prevented them from entering into to work in the past. So providing access to employment is often a big focus of social enterprises, as is providing access to training and helping people develop their broader capacity. And then within that, there are a range of social enterprises that focus in different sectors. And our focus through this project is really to talk about developing social enterprise in agriculture and agribusiness within the Gippsland context. Some of the more well-known social enterprises that might immediately spring to mind are things like the Big Issue social magazine, a street magazine that's actually an international magazine that provides not only a really good read, but provides an employment opportunity for a range of people who have previously experienced homelessness or are currently experiencing homelessness, people who have been incarcerated, and people for one reason or another who haven't been able to access employment. Another fairly well-known example, say Jamie Oliver's restaurants, the 15 restaurants. We had one in Melbourne for some time, using both local produce, but importantly, again, making employment available to people and training opportunities available to people who wouldn't otherwise see a pathway for themselves through the hospitality sector. Social enterprises have, I guess, 6 main characteristics. Other people might be able to identify other characteristics, but the Social Enterprise Manifesto describes them as being social enterprises are driven. They're driven by an economic, cultural, or environmental mission for public benefit. And I think that sense of purpose and intent is really at the heart of what a social enterprise is about. Sometimes it might be an individual or a group of people who see a local issue that isn't being addressed by either government or private enterprise, and see that they have an opportunity and perhaps even a need to be involved in solving it. One of the lovely examples that we're working with through the university at the moment is an organisation in Emerald in regional Queensland or remote Queensland called the Central Highlands Community Services. And it's a group driven by local stakeholders, some council people, some local business people, who have developed a social enterprise with the purpose of creating a neighbourhood house and developing accommodation options for people living with disability who are otherwise struggling to find housing opportunities in the local area. And you talk to the people leading the Central Highlands Community Services Organisation, and they say, you know, government money just doesn't get that far. It's not a priority for such a small town to solve those issues. So that sense of the community taking it upon themselves to identify an issue and identify potential solutions to that is one of the real characteristics of social enterprise. A sense of people being at the absolute heart of social enterprises is really critical. And I guess, again, this is how it's different to a normal commercial or solely for profit type of business. The outcomes and the way social enterprise measures their impact is not simply how well did we do financially, did we achieve our sales target. They look at the impact on people, the impact on people's well-being, the impact on their employment, the impact on their training, and the impact of people who've come through their business and what they've been able to achieve further down the track. If the business is about an environmental impact and the focus of the business is about solving environmental issues, then there's lots of marvelous ways that you can also start to look at the environmental impact. And more recently, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, I think, have really given us all a great framework for identifying a range of social issues that across the globe we know need to be addressed. They've also started to give us frameworks for how we can measure our impact and compare or share that with other people who are also working to try and address similar types of issues. Social enterprises are characterised by trading. So people will often suggest that social enterprises are about charity, and they're not. Doesn't mean that a social enterprise won't occasionally get a grant or be partly funded through grant or philanthropic funding. But the purpose of a social enterprise is actually to trade as a business, whether to have a product or products or service as a way to profitably fulfill their mission and to create surplus that can then be invested back into the purpose of the business. And that issue of reinvesting is really critical. Social traders, which is the peak body for social enterprises in Australia, sorry, that's not accurate. They're the peak body that drives social procurement as an activity that is engaging with social enterprises to buy from them. Social traders actually define a social enterprise as an organisation that invests 50% or more of its profit or surplus back into the mission of the business. So they draw a line in the sand and say, if you're just investing 5% back, that might be a social business or have a great social intent. And so they've determined that 50% reinvestment is their benchmark. We probably at the university take a slightly more liberal view of social businesses and social enterprises, but it's useful to know that there are frameworks for how other people look at social enterprises. And the final two characteristics, I guess, of social enterprise is one of engagement. So the process of developing a social enterprise, of trading with a social enterprise, is really about creating greater community benefit. It's not benefit that has a very narrow impact. The intent is to involve a lot of people in the process so that there is a very broad community impact, whether that's in designing a business or in the process of trading and engaging with the community over time. And then finally, as you would expect from a business that is so well-intentioned, social enterprises are generally fairly transparent in the way they operate. They might make their operations easily visible to other people through their AGM, through their reporting, through their impact statements. And that really is part of ensuring that there is wide community engagement with social enterprises. I hope that you're able to see this slide. It's coming up okay for me, but I realise that there's some fairly small text on it, and I apologise. I'm certainly happy to share these slides with anyone that would like them later. Again, I refer to social traders as that organisation that really drives procurement from social enterprise nationally. And some of you may be aware that the Victorian government 3-4 years ago brought in a social procurement approach that mandates that their departments buy from social enterprises. They have set procurement targets through working with social traders that actually create an economic environment where social enterprises are encouraged to start, encouraged to trade with a social purpose, and government departments are very strongly encouraged to trade and buy from them. Queensland followed suit last year with their own social enterprise strategy. and their focus is very much on creating employment. And what we're seeing across Australia at the moment is a very strong focus on social enterprise as a business model, as a way of addressing a range of social issues and generating employment. And we're seeing a number of organisations, local councils, large corporates such as the large banks, BHP, all making commitments around buying from social enterprises. And as a university, we've also made commitments around buying from social enterprises. So we've committed to increasing our spend from social enterprise by 50% over the next 3 years. And I'm really pleased to say that within the first year of that strategy being launched, we actually achieved that target. So now we need to set ourselves a better target. Social traders, though, I'm sorry, coming back to the slide, social traders have developed this graphic as a way of really showing where social enterprise as a business model sits in a continuum from at one end very much a community welfare organisation, an organisation that's solely reliant on grants or fundraising or philanthropic investments, all the way through to a mainstream commercial business that has a sole purpose or a main purpose of generating revenue and profit, either for a single owner or owners, or as part of a listed company and for shareholders. Social enterprise sits really firmly in the middle of that. They have an intent and a mandate to trade, to actually generate revenue. It is not a charity in that everyone just wants to break even. They actually want to trade and create economic benefit for the people involved in the business and the broader community, with the intent of returning the surplus of that back to the business. And I think seeing it on a continuum like this really helps to think about where a social enterprise sits within a community, and that you can in fact create that broad community benefit while also trading as a successful business. I mentioned that at CQ University we have a long-term commitment to working with regional Australia, and we particularly have a focus over the last 5 to 6 years of working with social enterprise, particularly in regional Australia. I head up the Office of Social Innovation, which was we opened about 5 years ago. We are Australia's only changemaker university. We're accredited by an international organisation, Ashoka U, as having values, educational programs, research output, and programs for our students and community that specifically focus on innovation with a social purpose. So we refer to it as social innovation, and social enterprise is one component of that. Some of the things that we have underway currently and have been doing for some time, we've just in the last couple of months launched a fabulous online social enterprise course, or an accelerator, that we call iActivate, and that's for businesses who have potentially a fledgling idea. They know they would like to be a social enterprise or better understand the characteristics of a social enterprise. And iActivate takes them through a 12-week series of lectures and podcasts and business planning tools that really helps to develop people's capacity to understand how to identify a good business idea, how to understand how to operationalize and commercialize that, how to promote it and understand who your target market are, how to start looking at how you might finance that into the future. So we've just launched that, and that was specifically in response to work we've been doing across regional Australia, and specifically regional Queensland, where we know that there are a lot of fledgling businesses who really want that extra input to, how do I do this? There must be a bit of a roadmap to get me from here to the end. And we know particularly across regional Australia that access to accelerator or incubator programs is often harder to come by. They're readily available in metropolitan areas where I am. So this online program was designed to try and fill that gap. We also partner with the state and national peak bodies that represent social enterprise and support the social enterprise sector. So in Victoria, SENVIC, Social Enterprise Network of Victoria, was launched last year, and all of the states have come on board now to have their local social enterprise network, all under the banner of ASENA, which is the Australian Social Enterprise Network of Australia. So we liaise closely with those various state and national bodies. As I mentioned, we have our own social procurement strategy at the university, and then we have a range of other initiatives that really support social enterprise. And I introduced my colleague, Ashley Clark. She heads up our participation in the Big Idea competition. And every year we work with cohorts of students to develop social enterprise business plans, often with extraordinary impact. And we've been very fortunate that at a national level, we have won that competition 4 out of the last 7 years, which I think goes to show our real commitment to helping students understand social enterprise as a business solution. Moving on to why we might want to bring enterprise skills or social enterprise skills to young people around Gippsland. What we know from an amazing piece of research, or body of research, which many of you are probably familiar with, the Foundation for Young Australians has developed their Future of Work series over many, many years. And they started with an amazing metadata analysis of job ads for people going into entry level or roles suitable for young people. And that metadata analysis looked at thousands of jobs. In fact, I think it was in millions of jobs, to identify those skills that we used to refer to as soft skills. And I think soft was often seen as a little bit wishy-washy, a little bit not quite as good as those technical skills. In fact, what we know is that those soft skills, or what we're now referring as 21st century skills or future of work skills, are absolutely critical to young people's success when they move into employment. And that FYA research summarised them as critical thinking and problem solving, digital and financial literacy, teamwork and collaboration, and presentation skills. And it's interesting because I think often people think that you just develop those things organically. They just come about through being a student. And in fact, what we know is they don't. They need to be taught, and they need to be considered and built into curriculum. When we look at teaching social enterprises, and as I said, we've been doing this for quite some time, what we know is that social enterprise education teaches students a particular set of skills that is really closely aligned with these future of work or 21st century skills. By teaching young people how to identify problems in their communities, problems that they might have some ideas around how to solve, or by teaching them how to identify opportunities. Amy talked yesterday about a great project that we run where students consider, what do you do with the byproduct of peeling potatoes to make potato chips? By looking at that as, well, a problem, we've got an excess of potato peelings and we don't know what to do with them, and there's only so much capacity for disposing of those. By looking at that and saying, well, I wonder, is there a byproduct that comes from that? Is there some way of using those so that it becomes more circular in nature and we get benefit from the byproduct of potato peelings? It starts to show students that the problems that they see or the solutions that they are used to seeing aren't the extent of the problems and solutions, that through creativity and following some identified processes, which usually known as a design thinking approach, that they themselves can come up with potential solutions that might actually find a new market. They might solve a problem that people have previously thought of as intractable or unsolvable. So that creativity starts to tap into the ideas of critical thinking and problem solving. And importantly, what it does is help to foster a sense of curiosity. And as an employer of young people, the one thing I look for is curiosity. People who question, why is that so? How could I do that differently? What can I bring to this environment? We know that teaching social enterprise also develops young people's business planning skills. And certainly what we know is unless young people have had exposure to businesses, the inside of them, how they work, maybe working with a family business, it's really hard to understand how a business is put together. So the simple process of teaching people to think about generating their own social enterprise helps them understand, what does the sector look like? What does agribusiness look like in Gippsland? Who are the participants, the employers, who grows food, who processes food, who distributes food, who manages the logistics for that? Who are the buyers of the food and the produce that come out of a particular region? By helping students to understand that supply chain and the logistics, it helps them develop a deeper understanding of where there might be job opportunities, and also spark curiosity and think about where do their skills potentially fit into that environment. And through teaching students social enterprise, we also know that they develop a better understanding of finance. So you might think, I have no idea why that product costs me $50. But when you actually understand how long it took to grow it, or process it, or package it, or mold it, and the number of people and processes along the way, it's easier to understand where all of the components of a business fit together. Teaching social enterprise also teaches students to be active participants and to recognise that they have an opportunity to take direct action, that they have agency, they have capacity to affect change in their community. And it also helps them to develop their understanding of the world, why it is they hold particular views, sometimes biases, and they do that through collaboration, discussion, and also research. And importantly, we know that students learn public speaking, pitching, and how to actually sell themselves and sell an idea. And I think one of the really satisfying things that we have seen in working with students over many years is that students who find their voice through being involved in social enterprise and find that real confidence of having spent weeks or months thinking about an idea, and then the confidence to be able to tell people about that and pitch that to other people. These are a couple of the groups of young people, not as young as the groups that we're talking about for this particular project, but these are some of the young people that we've worked with through the university for the past couple of years. The students at the top, Diksha, the young woman, and Asan, the young man. Last week, I think it was, won the National Social Enterprise Competition, The Big Idea, which is run by the Big Issue magazine. They started with a germ of an idea. How might you change the road toll and outcomes for people who have motorbike accidents in India? I knew nothing about this. They probably didn't know an awful lot about it, other than that they knew that it was an enormous problem and lots of people die because they simply don't get access to safety equipment like helmets, or the ambulance service simply can't get to them fast enough once they've had a road accident. So over the last 6 months or so, Diksha and Asan have gone through the process of researching, how big is this problem? What are some of the technical solutions that they might bring through their own studies? They are both Master of Management for Engineers students, so they both have engineering degrees already, and they are bringing their creativity and then their personal knowledge of a social issue into this competition, and have developed an amazing business plan that has now won them the National Social Enterprise Competition. And I think what we've seen through working with them is just an amazing flourishing, not only of their technical understanding of the problem, but also their confidence in themselves as they worked through how to express that, how to bring that story to life. The bottom right photo is one of my favourite photos of groups of students that we've worked with. these students, Jess, Angus, and oh, for a moment, I can't think of the third student's name, I'm sorry, worked with us in 2014. And again, they were from regional Queensland. They had an amazing idea to develop emergency housing, and that was developed in response to cyclones that regularly go through Queensland and just wipe out people's houses. And they had a brilliant idea to develop emergency housing that could be rolled out at very, very short notice for people to put on their own property while they were thinking about rebuilding. Jessica Carl, the young woman in the photo, was 19 when I met her there. And she was studying engineering. She had not been out of regional Queensland, and coming to Melbourne as part of this process, and really even understanding the nature of the process, was an enormous step for her. Jess has subsequently gone on to found her own business. She is now the CEO of an organisation called Dream Big Australia. She has a very prominent board of people surrounding her, and her whole business is focused on how do you teach young women in particular, how do you interest them in the STEM environment, how do you get them to understand their capability and the types of jobs that might be available. And Jess goes out and speaks to young women in schools regularly and hosts a range of events to bring young women into universities and into STEM employment and industry opportunities so that they can see where the possibilities might lie for them. Jess has also gone on to be shortlisted for the 2021 Young Australian of the Year competition. And really, as I said, what we've seen through our students participating in social enterprise is both a flourishing of their creativity, but a real flourishing of their confidence as they work through a project. So what do we plan to do in Gippsland? Well, in term 1 of next year, we will be working with interested schools, school teachers, school principals, communities around designing this social enterprise program. And while we have a pretty good idea of what the curriculum will look like, we're really keen to get input around when will it be delivered, how big should it be, what's the easiest way to engage with schools. Through terms 2 and 3, we'll be delivering the program and evaluating the program and supporting teachers who are working through the program with their students. The program will start with some initial workshops with teachers to develop their understanding of social enterprise and how to teach it. We will also be providing a toolkit of materials for the teachers to use in class as they teach over 2021. And we're really keen to work with schools and teachers around where does this fit in the curriculum, which modules of study, what timing is going to work best for you. We're also really keen, as Amy said yesterday, to bring in as many people as we can from the agribusiness, social enterprise and STEM sectors, so that we can provide a lot of mentoring both for the teachers and also for the students. And again, what we're very conscious of in having taught social enterprise for some time is bringing in different voices, bringing in people with different expertise at different times is really important. This program is open for students, government schools at both primary and secondary levels. And so there will be some tailoring of the program and how it's delivered and when it will be delivered to meet the needs of those different schools. Then we expect that there'll be some sort of final presentation that will be held within the school. You might decide that you want to do a judging panel, and we'd be delighted to be part of that. And then a lovely celebration and program closure. And of course, as part of all of this, we will be looking at the impact of this. We'll be looking at both the outcomes for the students and their schools, but also refining that model of teaching social enterprise to primary and secondary students so that it can be developed further and it can be rolled out further where needed. We are looking for schools, of course, who think that this is going to be a great opportunity for them. And we're very keen to talk to schools either today, or feel free to register your interest at racegippsland.com/register. We're also looking for industry partners, people working in the agribusiness and agriculture sector who can provide opportunities for young people to come out and have a look at their industry, see what their operations look like, understand what the challenges or opportunities in the sector are from your point of view. We're looking for people to be mentors, and we're looking for the broader community to, I guess, wrap their arms around projects such as this and see the amazing potential for teaching young people how they can help to create their own careers and industries and jobs into the future. And I think that this is where this is really powerful, and it comes back to that sense of place that I talked about as one of the characteristics of social enterprise. Social enterprises don't just happen in isolation. They need communities that sit around them that see the broader community benefit of being involved. For anyone who's interested in some further resources around social enterprise, very happy to circulate this. This has a list of potential contacts and websites and some contact details for me.